Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being here. First question, Adriana, why use a different animation style for the story of Suleiman?
That allows you to, in the animation world, that allows you to actually create definition between what's real, the real world of the characters, and what's fantasy. So visually, that tells you, okay, we're now in a different world. So that's the way you can visually treat any of those aspects of the story. Yes.
Rose, what sustains the women in the film? Their faith, hope for a better future, or simple survival, or perhaps a combination of any of those?
I think all three of those things, but the one thing that might be that we might want to mention is that familial love, that incredibly strong bond between a mother and her children, and even among siblings. So, and of course the father. So I don't think we can overlook that the fact that maybe we don't think of this sometimes, is that in every culture, even cultures that don't believe the same way we do, or maybe, I don't know, it's just that the human family bond is so strong because that's where the source of our identity comes from. So I would add that, the family bond and love to those three things.
Elizabeth, are you in contact with friends of Afghanistan at the moment? What is it like for them?
I am in contact with friends in country. Several families have fled either immediately before or after the Taliban took power on August 15th. Those who could not were generally in hiding. Some have been able to get out in the last couple of weeks. So they're in the very difficult process of moving from Doha to Germany to the United States or to other countries, depending on who's giving them refuge. So I have been, and I do have several friends who are still in country. I can't identify them because they were highly public figures, and they're living a very precarious existence right now, hoping that they'll be able to continue to be doing their jobs, but without their lives being at risk. But it's terrifying, basically, for them. The people I work with in the country are women in leadership roles, men in leadership roles, journalists, professors, teachers, school principals. So all of these people are possible targets, and some have been. Generally speaking, the profession have been targets of the Taliban even since they took over. So it's a very frightening, dangerous time for people, and unquestionably, people's lives are at risk.
Here's a question I'll pose to all three of you. This person asks about the film's ending. I'm disappointed it didn't end with the family being united. Can anyone talk about this? Can anyone talk about that decision? Was the book the same?
I can just say that I'm not sure. I didn't read the book, but I think, if you put all the happy family together at the end, it doesn't really work, because the reality is that they struggle to stay together. But I think they were moving towards being together. I was left satisfied with the way the story was going, but that's me.
I will say, from a realistic standpoint, the fact that they were not able to be together, and I believe in the book they didn't reunite also. I did read the book prior to watching the film. This is reality, that when people are in diaspora, the families are ripped apart, and it's very hard to stay together. I find it miraculous that my friends who have escaped have managed to get out, at least with their intact nuclear families for the most part. But their brothers, sisters, uncles have been left behind in Kabul or other cities. And so it's a very realistic part of the story that there might be some bittersweet parts that, yes, some things have worked out, but the reality is life is, does animation reflect life or life animation? This is a real situation.
And I can speak for my part. I didn't read the book either, but I think that ending does leave a bit for interpretation for the viewer. You can still think, at some point they're going to reunite, and as Professor Riley was saying, maybe they don't. So it just gives that open ending because it's reality that we're trying to show.
Another question that I'll throw to all three of you. What films have come out of Afghanistan, and where might I see them?
Wow, that's a great question. I remember there's a documentary, I think it was on PBS, and you could probably do a search for it. It was about a woman who opened a beauty parlor in Kabul. And that might have even been part of the title. And that came out early on, like around, I want to say around 2005, 2006. So there was a early start. Well, that's already 3 or 4 years into the conflict. And, but women were already striking out on their own.
Elizabeth, do you recall what some of those films may have been that you were referring to a couple days ago?
I would say start with Googling Sarah Karimi, and she's one of the filmmakers who just fled, and she is now going to make a documentary about her flight out of Afghanistan. And she just Googling her name or Googling Afghan Film Society or Foundation or whatever will get you immediately to a number of the Afghan filmmakers who have made it to the global stage in the last 20 years. And you'll be able to see some really fabulous things. There are also some other non-Afghan filmmakers who have highlighted what's going on. Ian Hamilton from Australia. I met him in Kabul a number of years back, and Ian did a spectacular documentary of the country. He and I have kept in touch and even met up in Australia to talk more about his work. So there are a number of people available. Just by doing some quick Google searches, you'll come upon some wonderful Afghan filmmakers as well as other filmmakers or animators who have been doing work about the country.
There's another film similar to the Breadwinner, which is called Osama, that came out in 2016, and but it's live action, and it's about a girl who dresses up as a boy to survive, and that got a lot of critical acclaim.
Got room for one more question here, and Adriana, this one's for you. The film appears to have been financed by a number of state entities. Does the U.S. have similar resources or options for financing? Is that true?
What happens now with film, you actually pitch the film to multiple financing entities, and then you actually get funding for various, that before it used to be just like a studio, but now you'll see pretty much in every film that there's multiple entities financing the film. So as far as the US, I think if you look at all of the films now that are coming out, you'll see that there are multiple finance entities, behind those films too as well. It's a very.
Are there state entities that finance films, government organizations you know of?
Not that I can think of right now, to be honest, but it's not like the film board, like the Canadian Film Board, where they have like a specific state that does that. But there might be grants that you can look into. So, like I know Sundance does some like development grants. So there are things that can help you do this, if you have an idea. But yeah, I'm sorry, I cannot think of the top of my head. But yeah, there are different places that they would support. It's kind of like seed grants to help your project up to get it up and running. Yes.
That's all the time we have for questions today. Elizabeth, Adriana, and Rose, thank you all again for your time this week and this wonderful conversation on such a terrific film. For those of you joining us online, we hope to see you at the November film discussion, hopefully screening, depending on the pandemic restrictions. It'll at least be a really good discussion, and that is the documentary Coded Bias. So we look forward to continuing the discussion in the months to come. So thank you all again, and see you around the campus.